Welcome to the True Crime Studio, where we share incredible stories of resilience, forgiveness, and second chances. Today's video takes us on the emotional journey of Maxwell and Olivia, a separated couple whose unexpected reunion changes everything. This is a powerful tale of love, regret, and the bonds that hold families together. If you enjoy stories that touch the heart, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the True Crime Studio for more inspiring content. Let's dive into this unforgettable story.
The Hawthorne mansion glittered under the evening sky, a beacon of wealth and success in the heart of Boston's elite neighborhood. Inside, the clinking of champagne glasses and the hum of excited conversations filled the air. Maxwell Hawthorne, the 40-year-old real estate tycoon, stood at the center of it all, a forced smile plastered on his face as he shook hands with investors and accepted congratulations on his latest business triumph. "To the Hawthorne Group's most successful year yet," someone shouted, raising a glass. The crowd echoed the sentiment, but Maxwell's eyes darted anxiously towards the grand staircase. His wife, Olivia, was conspicuously absent from the celebration. As if on cue, a commotion erupted near the top of the stairs. Olivia, her face streaked with tears and her designer dress askew, stumbled into view. The crowd fell silent, all eyes turning to the distraught woman. "I can't do this anymore, Maxwell," Olivia cried, her voice echoing through the now quiet hall. "I'm a failure. I can't give you what you want." Maxwell's facade cracked, panic flashing across his features. He rushed to his wife, trying to guide her back upstairs and away from the prying eyes of their guests. But Olivia pulled away, her pain and frustration pouring out for all to see. 6 years of treatments, Maxwell. 6 years of hormones and doctors and disappointment. I'm empty inside. Do you hear me? Empty. Her voice broke on the last word, and she collapsed to her knees on the polished marble floor. The guests began to murmur, some averting their eyes from the private scene unfolding before them, others watching with morbid fascination. Maxwell knelt beside his wife, his voice low and urgent. "Olivia, please. Not here, not now. We can talk about this later." But Olivia was beyond caring about appearances. She looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen. "There is no later, Maxwell. Can't you see? This is killing me. Every negative test, every pitying look from the doctors. I feel like I'm disappearing, piece by piece." As Maxwell helped Olivia to her feet, a memory flashed through his mind. Their wedding day, 7 years ago. Olivia, radiant in white, her eyes sparkling with love and promise as they danced under the stars. How had they gone from that perfect moment to this public meltdown? The party dissolved into awkward goodbyes and hasty departures. Maxwell's business partner, James, approached him as the last guests were leaving. "Max, I'm so sorry. If there's anything we can do?" Maxwell cut him off with a sharp shake of his head. "It's fine, James. Just a little too much champagne. You know how it is." But it wasn't fine, and they both knew it. As the door closed behind James, Maxwell leaned against it, the weight of the evening pressing down on him. He could hear Olivia's muffled sobs from upstairs, a sound that had become all too familiar in recent months. He loosened his tie, feeling as though he was suffocating. The pressure to produce an heir, to continue the Hawthorne legacy, had been crushing them both. Maxwell had thrown money at the problem, convinced that the best doctors and the most cutting-edge treatments would eventually yield results. But with each failure, he watched his wife withdraw further into herself, while he buried himself deeper in his work. As he climbed the stairs to face Olivia, Maxwell's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at the screen and froze. The name, Sophia, flashed up at him, along with a text message that made his blood run cold. "We need to talk. It's urgent." Maxwell's hand trembled as he stared at the phone. Sophia was his assistant, young and ambitious. They had been working late nights together on a big project in New York. He had convinced himself it was purely professional, but deep down, he knew there was more to it. With a heavy sigh, Maxwell pocketed the phone. He had a choice to make, one that would change everything. As he reached for the bedroom door, steeling himself for the conversation ahead with Olivia, he couldn't shake the feeling that his carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down around him. Maxwell Hawthorne stepped out of the taxi onto the bustling streets of New York City. The weight of his recent argument with Olivia still pressed heavily on his mind as he entered the sleek office building. He forced a smile as he greeted Sophia, his assistant, in the lobby. "Ready for a long night, Mr. Hawthorne?" Sophia asked, her tone professional but her eyes glinting with something more. "Let's get this deal done," Maxwell replied, pushing aside his personal troubles. As the hours ticked by, Maxwell and Sophia worked tirelessly on the project. The office emptied, leaving them alone. The tension between them grew with each passing minute. "We should take a break," Sophia suggested, stretching in her chair. Maxwell couldn't help but notice the curve of her body as she moved. "You're right," he agreed, loosening his tie. "Want to grab a drink?" They found themselves in a dimly lit bar, the alcohol flowing freely. Maxwell felt the burden of his troubled marriage lifting with each sip. Sophia leaned in close, her perfume intoxicating. "You work too hard, Maxwell," she purred, using his first name for the first time. "Don't you ever want to just let go?" Maxwell knew he should leave, but the temptation was overwhelming. In a moment of weakness, he gave in to his desires. The next morning, Maxwell woke in his hotel room, guilt crashing over him like a tidal wave. Memories of the night before flooded his mind. Sophia's touch, the heat of their bodies, the betrayal of his vows. He jumped as his phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. "Missing you. Come home soon." Maxwell felt sick. He rushed to the bathroom, splashing cold water on his face. As he looked in the mirror, he barely recognized the man staring back at him. Suddenly, the scene shifted. Maxwell found himself back in his bedroom at home. Olivia stood in the doorway, her face a mask of hurt and betrayal. Behind her, Sophia smirked triumphantly. "How could you?" Olivia screamed, tears streaming down her face. Maxwell jolted awake, his heart pounding. It was just a nightmare, but the guilt was all too real. As he prepared to leave New York, Maxwell's mind wandered to how he'd ended up in this situation. He remembered the first time Sophia had joined his team, her eagerness to please and her subtle flirtations. Over the months, Sophia had orchestrated moments alone with Maxwell, late-night work sessions, accidental encounters in the elevator. Each time, she'd moved closer, breaking down his defenses bit by bit. Maxwell realized with a start that Sophia's actions hadn't been innocent. She'd been playing a long game, maneuvering herself into a position where this affair was almost inevitable. As he boarded his flight back to Boston, Maxwell vowed to himself that it would never happen again. He would recommit to Olivia, to their marriage, to the family they were trying to build. But even as he made these promises, a part of him knew it was already too late. The damage was done, and the consequences were yet to unfold. Back in New York, Sophia sat in her apartment, a satisfied smile on her face. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. "It's done," she said cryptically to the person on the other end. "Everything's going according to plan." As she hung up, Sophia's smile widened. Maxwell Hawthorne had no idea what was coming, but she did, and she couldn't wait to watch it all unfold. Meanwhile, on the plane, Maxwell stared out the window, his mind a whirlwind of guilt, fear, and uncertainty. He knew he had to face Olivia, but how could he look her in the eye after what he'd done? The plane took off, carrying Maxwell back to Boston and the reckoning that awaited him. Little did he know, the events set in motion by his moment of weakness would soon spiral far beyond his control, threatening to destroy everything he held dear. As the city lights faded into the distance, Maxwell closed his eyes, trying to shut out the memory of Sophia's touch and the sound of Olivia's sobs. But in the darkness behind his eyelids, he could see his carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. The flight attendant's voice jolted him from his thoughts. "Sir, would you like a drink?" Maxwell nodded, accepting the small bottle of whiskey. As he took a sip, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was hurtling towards a point of no return. Whatever waited for him in Boston, he knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. Maxwell's return to Boston was met with dark clouds gathering on the horizon. As he stepped into his office, Sophia was waiting for him, her face a mask of determination. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady. Maxwell felt a knot form in his stomach. "Sophia, about New York dash." "I'm pregnant," she interrupted, her words hitting him like a physical blow. Maxwell stumbled back, gripping his desk for support. "That's impossible. We were careful." Sophia's laugh was cold. "Were we? I've been planning this for months, Maxwell. Every late night, every accidental touch. It was all leading to this." Rage boiled up inside Maxwell. He lunged forward, grabbing Sophia's arms. "You planned this? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Sophia didn't flinch. "I'm giving you what you've always wanted, an heir. Something your wife couldn't do." Maxwell released her, disgust and self-loathing washing over him. "Get out," he growled. "You're fired. If you ever come near me or my family again, dash." "You'll what?" Sophia challenged. "Deny your own child? Ruin your precious reputation? Face it, Maxwell. You need me now." As Sophia left, Maxwell's world spun out of control. He grabbed his coat and headed home, his mind a storm of conflicting emotions. The house was quiet when he arrived. Olivia sat in the living room, her face pale and drawn. "Where have you been?" she asked. Maxwell opened his mouth to explain, to confess, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, a tidal wave of misplaced anger surged forth. "I can't do this anymore, Olivia. The treatments, the disappointment. It's too much." Olivia's eyes widened in shock. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want a child," Maxwell shouted, his voice rising with each word. "And you can't give me one." The moment the words left his mouth, he knew he'd crossed a line. Olivia recoiled as if she'd been slapped. "How dare you?" she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "After everything we've been through, dash." Maxwell's rational mind screamed at him to stop, to apologize, but he was too far gone. Years of frustration and recent guilt erupted like a volcano. "Pack your things," he said, his voice cold and unfamiliar even to himself. "I want you out of this house." Olivia stared at him in disbelief. "You can't be serious." "Maxwell, please, let's talk about this." But Maxwell was beyond reason. He grabbed Olivia's arm, pulling her towards the door. "Get out," he roared. "Now." Outside, the storm that had been threatening all day finally broke. Rain poured down in sheets as Maxwell shoved Olivia onto the porch, tossing a hastily packed bag after her. "Maxwell, please," Olivia begged, her voice barely audible over the rain and thunder. "Where am I supposed to go?" For a moment, Maxwell hesitated, a flicker of his old self breaking through the madness. But then Sophia's words echoed in his mind, and he slammed the door shut. Olivia stood on the porch, rain soaking through her clothes. She couldn't process what had just happened. How had her life fallen apart so quickly? In a daze, she picked up her bag and started walking, with no destination in mind. The streets were deserted, the storm driving everyone indoors. Olivia wandered aimlessly, her mind replaying the horrible scene with Maxwell over and over. She didn't notice the car approaching until its headlights illuminated her rain-soaked figure. Startled, Olivia stumbled, her bag falling to the ground. As she bent to pick it up, something fell out, a small, white stick. With trembling hands, she picked it up, squinting through the rain to see what it was. A pregnancy test. Positive. Olivia's world tilted on its axis. She was pregnant. After all this time, all the treatments, it had finally happened. But now, the realization was too much. Olivia felt her knees buckle, the world going dark around her. She collapsed to the wet pavement, the positive pregnancy test still clutched in her hand. The approaching car swerved, its tires screeching on the wet road. It missed Olivia's unconscious form by inches, coming to a stop just beyond her. As the driver's door opened, lightning illuminated the scene. A woman lying motionless in the rain, her life and the lives of those around her changed forever by the perfect storm of events that had just unfolded. 5 years had passed since that fateful night. Maxwell Hawthorne sat in his expansive office, staring at a photo of his son, Ethan. The boy's 5th birthday was approaching, and Maxwell was determined to make it special. "Mr. Hawthorne," his secretary's voice crackled over the intercom, "the custom playhouse you ordered for Ethan has arrived." Maxwell sighed. Another extravagant gift to make up for his constant absence. "Have it delivered to the house," he instructed. Across town, in a modest apartment, Olivia rushed to get her daughter, Lily, ready for school. "Come on, sweetie. Mommy's going to be late for work." Lily, a mirror image of her mother, dragged her feet. "I don't want to go to school. The other kids have daddies to pick them up." Olivia's heart clenched. She knelt down, looking into her daughter's eyes. "Remember what I told you? Families come in all shapes and sizes. Ours is special because it's just you and me." As Olivia dropped Lily off at school, she couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. Balancing work and single motherhood was a constant struggle, but she was determined to give Lily the best life possible. Back at the Hawthorne mansion, Maxwell returned home early, hoping to spend time with Ethan. He found the boy in the garden, playing alone while Sophia talked on the phone. "Ethan," Maxwell called out, "want to try out your new playhouse?" Ethan looked up, his eyes lighting up briefly before dimming again. "Maybe later, Dad. I'm tired." Maxwell felt a familiar ache in his chest. No matter how many gifts he bought, he couldn't seem to bridge the gap between him and his son. Later that afternoon, Maxwell sat in his study, a hidden drawer open on his desk. Inside was a thick file labeled Olivia. He flipped through pages of private investigator reports, each one a failed attempt to locate his ex-wife. A memory surfaced. Olivia's face, streaked with rain and tears, as he slammed the door on her. The guilt was overwhelming. He slammed the drawer shut, unable to face his past mistakes. Meanwhile, Olivia was finishing up her shift at a local diner. Her manager approached, looking concerned. "Olivia, you look exhausted. Why don't you take tomorrow off? You've been working doubles all week." Olivia shook her head. "I can't afford to, Tom. Lily's school fees are due next week." As she left work, Olivia decided to take Lily to the park. It was a rare treat, given her usually packed schedule. Watching her daughter laugh and play, Olivia allowed herself a moment of peace. Unbeknownst to her, fate was about to intervene. Maxwell, feeling suffocated at home, had decided to take a walk. His feet carried him to the same park where Olivia and Lily were playing. As he rounded a corner, Maxwell froze. There, just yards away, was Olivia. She was smiling, watching a little girl on the swings. His heart raced. After 5 years of searching, she was right there. But before he could move or speak, Olivia checked her watch. "Lily, honey, it's time to go," she called out. Within seconds, they were gone, leaving Maxwell rooted to the spot, 1,000 unspoken words on his lips. That night, as Olivia tucked Lily into bed, the little girl asked, "Mommy, why don't we have a house like my friends?" Olivia's mind flashed back to the early days after Maxwell had thrown her out. Nights spent in shelters, trying to keep a brave face for the baby growing inside her. She pushed the memories away, focusing on her daughter. "We have everything we need, sweetie. a roof over our heads and each other. Across town, Maxwell sat with Ethan, trying to engage him in conversation. "Did you like the playhouse, buddy?" Ethan shrugged. "It's okay. Can I go play video games now?" As Ethan left the room, Sophia entered, her face a mask of frustration. "He barely touched the playhouse, Maxwell. Maybe if you were around more." Maxwell felt his temper rise. "I'm trying, Sophia. What more do you want from me?" Their argument was interrupted by the arrival of the mail. Maxwell flipped through the envelopes absently until a plain white one caught his eye. Inside was a single photograph. His hand shook as he stared at the image. It was Olivia, smiling down at a little girl who looked just like her. On the back, a simple message was scrawled. She deserved better. Maxwell sank into his chair, the photograph clutched in his trembling hands. The life he'd thrown away and the family he'd never known stared back at him, a stark reminder of the consequences of his actions 5 years ago. As night fell over the city, two families, one fractured, one forged in adversity, faced an uncertain future, unaware that their paths were about to collide once again. The bustling Logan International Airport was a sea of travelers, but for Maxwell Hawthorne, time stood still. There, just feet away, stood Olivia, the woman he had spent 5 years searching for. She was holding the hand of a little girl, unmistakably their daughter. Maxwell's heart raced as he approached them. "Olivia," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Olivia turned, her eyes widening in shock. For a moment, neither spoke, the noise of the airport fading into the background. Lily, sensing the tension, tugged at her mother's hand. "Mommy, who's that man?" Olivia snapped out of her trance, instinctively pulling Lily closer. "No one, sweetie. Just someone Mommy used to know." Maxwell's gaze shifted to Lily, his throat tightening with emotion. "Hi there," he managed, kneeling to the girl's level. "I'm Maxwell. What's your name?" Before Lily could respond, Olivia stepped between them. "That's enough," she said, her voice cold. "We need to go, Lily." "Wait, please," Maxwell pleaded. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" Olivia hesitated, then nodded curtly. "Lily, why don't you go look at the gift shop? Stay where I can see you." As Lily skipped away, Olivia turned to Maxwell, her face a mask of indifference. "What do you want, Maxwell?" I've been looking for you," he stammered. "For years. I wanted to apologize, to make things right." Olivia laughed bitterly. "Make things right? Do you have any idea what I've been through?" The floodgates opened, and Olivia's carefully constructed facade crumbled. "After you threw me out, I had nothing. No money, no home. I slept in shelters for months, pregnant and terrified." Maxwell felt each word like a physical blow. "Olivia, I'm so sorry. If I had known Known what?" Olivia interrupted. "That I was pregnant? Would that have changed anything?" Maxwell's silence was answer enough. Olivia continued, her voice shaking. "Do you know I almost gave her up? I was so desperate, so alone. I thought she deserved better than me." Maxwell's eyes widened in horror. "But you didn't. You kept her." "I did," Olivia nodded. "And it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the best." As Olivia spoke, Maxwell realized the magnitude of what he had missed. First steps, first words, first day of school. All moments he could never get back. "She's beautiful," Maxwell said, watching Lily browse the shop window. "She looks just like you." Olivia's expression softened slightly. "She's smart too, and kind. Everything I could have hoped for in a daughter." Maxwell felt a surge of pride, quickly followed by crushing guilt. "Olivia, I know I can never make up for what I did, but please, let me be a part of her life. Of both your lives." Olivia's eyes hardened again. "You lost that right 5 years ago, Maxwell. We've managed just fine without you." "But she deserves to know her father," Maxwell argued. Her father. Olivia scoffed. A father is someone who's there, Maxwell. Someone who changes diapers and reads bedtime stories. Someone who doesn't abandon their family in the middle of a storm. Maxwell flinched at her words. I've changed, Olivia. Please, give me a chance to prove it. Olivia shook her head. It's too late. We're leaving Boston. I've accepted a job in San Francisco. It's a fresh start for both of us. San Francisco? Maxwell felt panic rising in his chest. You can't just take her away. I have rights, Dash. Rights? Olivia's voice was razor sharp. You gave up those rights the moment you slammed that door in my face. Lily is my daughter, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect her. As their argument escalated, neither noticed Lily watching them intently from the shop entrance. Her young face was creased with worry, sensing the storm brewing between the adults. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the tension. Maxwell? What's going on here? They turned to see Sophia approaching, her eyes darting between Maxwell and Olivia. The atmosphere shifted, becoming even more charged. Olivia's face paled as she recognized Sophia. Without a word, she grabbed Lily's hand and started walking briskly towards their gate. Olivia, wait! Maxwell called after her, but Olivia didn't look back. As she and Lily disappeared into the crowd, Maxwell was left standing there, torn between his past and present, watching his chance at redemption slip away once again. Sophia reached his side, her voice low and dangerous. Was that who I think it was? What is she doing here, Maxwell? Maxwell barely heard her. His eyes were fixed on the spot where Olivia and Lily had vanished, his mind reeling from the encounter that had changed everything. The encounter with Olivia at the airport left Maxwell shaken to his core. He knew he needed to change, not just for Lily and Olivia, but for Ethan and himself. The next day, he made an appointment with a therapist. Dr. Karen Lewis's office was a stark contrast to Maxwell's usual surroundings. As he sat on the couch, he felt out of place. So, Mr. Hawthorne, what brings you here? Dr. Lewis asked. Maxwell took a deep breath. I've made a mess of my life. I hurt people I love, and I don't know how to fix it. Over the next few sessions, Maxwell delved into his past. He talked about the pressure to succeed, the obsession with having an heir, and the disastrous choices he'd made. During one particularly intense session, Dr. Lewis asked, "When did this need for an heir begin?" Maxwell paused, thinking, "I guess it was always there. My father drilled it into me from a young age." "Tell me about your parents' relationship," Dr. Lewis probed. As Maxwell spoke, he had a revelation. They were never happy. It was all for show. Just like your marriage to Sophia? Dr. Lewis finished. Maxwell nodded, the truth hitting him hard. He'd been repeating the patterns of his own unhappy childhood. Armed with this new understanding, Maxwell decided to make changes at work. He called a meeting with his partners to discuss new family-friendly policies. Paid parental leave? Flexible hours? Maxwell, this will cost us a fortune. His partner, James, argued. It's the right thing to do, Maxwell insisted. We need to value our employees' families as much as we value profits. The meeting ended in a stalemate, with several partners threatening to block the changes. Maxwell left feeling frustrated but determined. At home, Maxwell tried to connect with Ethan. "Hey buddy, want to go to the park?" Ethan looked up from his video game, surprised. "Really? You're not working?" They headed to the park, Ethan chattering excitedly. Maxwell felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe it wasn't too late to be a good father to Ethan. At the playground, Maxwell pushed Ethan on the swings. Higher and higher. Ethan's laughter filled the air. Then, suddenly, Ethan slipped. Time seemed to slow as Maxwell watched his son fall. He lunged forward, managing to catch Ethan, but they both tumbled to the ground. "Ethan, are you okay?" Maxwell asked, panic in his voice. Ethan sat up, tears in his eyes but otherwise unhurt. You saved me, Dad. Maxwell pulled Ethan into a hug, his heart racing. For a moment, all the complications of his life faded away. This was what mattered. Back at home, Sophia was waiting, her face a mask of concern and anger. What happened? Why is Ethan scraped up? As Maxwell explained, he could see the distance between them growing. Sophia's concern was performative, lacking the genuine warmth of a mother's love. That night, unable to sleep, Maxwell sat in his study. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts about Olivia, Lily, Ethan, and the mess he'd made of everything. A ping from his computer drew his attention. A new email had arrived from an unknown sender. Curious, Maxwell opened it. His blood ran cold as he read the contents. The email contained detailed information about some of his company's less-than-ethical business practices. Practices he'd turned a blind eye to for years. The message was clear. We know what you've done. Make it right, or everyone will know. Maxwell sat back, his mind racing. Who could have sent this? And what would they do with this information? He thought about the changes he was trying to make, both personally and professionally. Was this a threat or an opportunity for real change? As the gravity of the situation sank in, Maxwell realized he was at a crossroads. He could continue down the path of deception and greed, or he could use this as a catalyst for genuine transformation. The choice he made now would define not just his future, but the futures of Ethan, Olivia, and Lily as well. Maxwell closed the email and picked up his phone. His fingers hovered over Dr. Lewis's number. He needed guidance now more than ever. As he pressed dial, Maxwell knew one thing for certain. The road ahead would be rocky, but for the first time in years, he was ready to face the challenges head-on. The phone rang, and Maxwell took a deep breath. It was time to face his demons and become the man his children deserved. Maxwell sat in his study, staring at the divorce papers in front of him. He knew this decision would change everything, but after his encounter with Olivia and Lily, he couldn't continue living a lie. The door burst open, and Sophia stormed in, her eyes blazing. Divorce? Are you out of your mind? Maxwell stood, trying to remain calm. Sophia, this isn't working. We both know it. Sophia's laugh was cold. You think you can just walk away? After everything I've done for you? Done for me? Maxwell's voice rose. You've manipulated me from the start. Sophia's demeanor changed, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. If you try to leave me, if you even think about fighting for custody of Ethan, I'll destroy you. Maxwell felt a chill run down his spine. What are you talking about? Sophia pulled out a USB drive. I have everything, Maxwell. Every shady deal, every bribe, every legal line you've crossed. One word from me, and it all comes out. Maxwell's mind raced. He had always known there were risks in his business practices, but he never imagined they would come back to haunt him like this. You wouldn't, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Sophia smiled, sensing his weakness. Try me. Oh, and don't think your precious Olivia is safe either. Maxwell's head snapped up. Leave her out of this. Too late, Sophia sneered. I know all about her little project in San Francisco. It would be a shame if something were to derail it. Maxwell felt sick. He had heard about Olivia's new job, a prestigious position at a school for underprivileged children. The thought of Sophia sabotaging it made his blood boil. If you touch her or Lily, I swear dash. Sophia cut him off. You'll what? Face it, Maxwell. You're powerless. I hold all the cards. As their argument escalated, neither noticed Ethan standing in the doorway, his eyes wide with fear. Maxwell lunged forward, trying to grab the USB drive from Sophia. She stumbled back, knocking over a vase. The crash finally alerted them to Ethan's presence. Ethan, Maxwell said, his voice softening. It's okay, buddy. Mom and Dad are just talking. But Ethan wasn't fooled. He had seen the anger, heard the threats. With a sob, he turned and ran. Maxwell moved to follow him, but Sophia blocked his path. Let him go. He's better off without you anyway. What are you talking about? Maxwell demanded. Sophia's smile was triumphant. Who do you think has been telling him what a disappointment you are? How you're never there for him? I've made sure he knows exactly what kind of father you are. The realization hit Maxwell like a punch to the gut. All those times Ethan had pulled away, all the hurt looks and cold shoulders. It wasn't just his absence, it was Sophia's manipulation. You've been poisoning my son against me? Maxwell's voice was barely a whisper. Our son, Sophia corrected, and I've been protecting him from you. Maxwell felt years of guilt and regret crashing down on him. He had let this happen. His choices, his neglect, had led to this moment. I want you out, he said, his voice shaking with anger. Pack your things and get out of my house. Sophia laughed. Your house? Oh, Maxwell, you really don't get it, do you? This is my house now, my life, and I'm not going anywhere. As they glared at each other, the sound of a car engine roaring to life broke the tension. They rushed to the window just in time to see Ethan speeding away in Maxwell's car. Ethan! Maxwell shouted, running for the door. But it was too late. The car disappeared around the corner, leaving Maxwell and Sophia staring in shock. In that moment, all their fighting, all their scheming, seemed meaningless. Their son was out there, alone and scared, because of them. Maxwell turned to Sophia, his face a mask of determination. We need to find him. Now. Sophia nodded, their temporary truce born of shared panic. As they rushed to her car, Maxwell's phone buzzed. An email notification popped up, another message from the anonymous sender. Your son is safe. But for how long? Maxwell's blood ran cold. The game had changed. It wasn't just about him anymore. Ethan was in danger, and he had no idea who he could trust. As Sophia peeled out of the driveway, Maxwell realized that the war he had been fighting on all fronts, with Sophia, with his past, with his own conscience, had just escalated, and the stakes were higher than ever. The search for Ethan consumed the next 24 hours. Maxwell and Sophia set aside their animosity, working together to find their son. They contacted the police, friends, and family, leaving no stone unturned. As dawn broke, Maxwell's phone rang. It was Ethan. Dad? Ethan's voice was small and scared. Ethan, where are you? Are you okay? Maxwell's relief was palpable. I'm at Grandma's. I'm sorry I took the car. I was just so scared. Maxwell sighed. It's okay, buddy. We're coming to get you. Stay there. The drive to Maxwell's mother's house was tense. When they arrived, Ethan ran into Maxwell's arms, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Ethan repeated. Maxwell held his son tight. No, I'm sorry. I've been a terrible father, but that's going to change. Sophia watched the scene, her face a mix of emotions. Back home, Maxwell made a decision. He called a press conference, shocking both Sophia and his business partners. Standing before a sea of reporters, Maxwell took a deep breath. I've called you here today to make some important announcements. First, I am resigning as CEO of Hawthorne Enterprises, effective immediately. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sophia, standing off to the side, paled. Maxwell continued, I've also instructed my lawyers to initiate legal proceedings against myself and the company for various ethical violations and questionable business practices. The room erupted in chaos. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed. I've spent years putting profit above people, including my own family. That ends today. I take full responsibility for my actions and am prepared to face the consequences. Maxwell then turned to face Sophia. I also want to apologize publicly to my wife, Sophia, and our son, Ethan. I've been a neglectful husband and father. My pursuit of success blinded me to what truly matters. Sophia's eyes widened in surprise. This wasn't the Maxwell she knew. Lastly, Maxwell said, his voice softening, I want to apologize to Olivia. 5 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life when I turned my back on you. I know now that you were pregnant with our daughter, Lily. I've missed so much, and I'm so sorry. The room fell silent. Maxwell had just exposed his most personal failures to the world. As security ushered Maxwell off the stage, reporters swarmed Sophia. She stood frozen, overwhelmed by the turn of events. Later, in Maxwell's office, Sophia confronted him. Are you insane? You've just destroyed everything we've built. Maxwell shook his head. No, Sophia. I've just taken the first step towards rebuilding what matters. Sophia's anger crumbled, revealing a vulnerability Maxwell had never seen. Why are you doing this? Is it all for her? For Olivia? It's for all of us, Maxwell replied. For Ethan, for Lily, for you, for me. We can't keep living like this. Tears formed in Sophia's eyes. You know, despite everything, I did love you, Maxwell. In my own way. Maxwell was taken aback. Sophia, She held up a hand. Don't. It's too late for us. But maybe it's not too late for you to be the father Ethan needs. As Sophia left, Ethan entered the room. He had heard everything. Dad, did you mean what you said? About changing? Maxwell knelt down to his son's level. Every word, buddy. I know I've let you down, but I promise, from now on, you come first. Always. Ethan hugged his father tightly. For the first time in years, Maxwell felt he was doing something right. Across town, Olivia sat in her small apartment, watching the press conference replay on TV. Her hand covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Lily entered the room. Mommy, why are you crying? Who's that man on TV? Olivia wiped her eyes, pulling Lily close. That's your father, sweetheart. Lily's eyes widened. My father? The one you said left us? Olivia nodded, her emotions in turmoil. Yes, baby. And it looks like he wants to be part of our lives now. As Lily processed this information, Olivia's phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Olivia, it's Maxwell. I know I have no right to ask, but please, can we talk? For Lily's sake. Olivia stared at the message, her finger hovering over the reply button. After everything that had happened, could she really let Maxwell back into their lives? The TV continued to replay Maxwell's confession, his words echoing in the small apartment. I'm so sorry. Olivia looked at Lily, then back at her phone. With a deep breath, she began to type her response, knowing that whatever she decided would change their lives forever. The park was quiet as Maxwell, Olivia, Lily, and Ethan gathered for their first family meeting. Tension hung in the air like a heavy fog. Thank you for coming, Maxwell said, breaking the silence. Olivia nodded stiffly. We're here for the children, Maxwell. Nothing more. Lily clung to her mother's side, eyeing Maxwell and Ethan warily. Ethan, for his part, couldn't stop staring at the sister he never knew he had. Lily, Maxwell said gently, I know this is strange, but I'm your father. I've missed so much of your life, and I want to make up for that. Lily looked up at Olivia, who gave her a reassuring nod. Mom says you left us, Lily said, her voice small but accusatory. Maxwell flinched. I made a terrible mistake, Lily, one I'll regret for the rest of my life. As the adults talked, Ethan approached Lily. Want to play on the swings? He asked. Lily hesitated, then agreed. The children headed to the playground, leaving Maxwell and Olivia to talk. How are you really doing, Olivia? Maxwell asked. Olivia sighed. It's been hard, Maxwell. Raising Lily alone, working multiple jobs. But we've managed. Maxwell's guilt was palpable. I want to help. Financially, emotionally, whatever you need. We don't need your money, Olivia snapped. Then, softening, she added. But Lily needs her father. Their conversation was interrupted by a shout from the playground. Ethan had pushed Lily off the swing. She said I wasn't her real brother. Ethan yelled as the adults rushed over. Lily was crying, holding her arm. I don't want a brother. I want things to stay the same. Maxwell and Olivia exchanged glances. This wasn't going to be easy. As they comforted the children, Ethan suddenly clutched his chest, gasping for air. Dad, he wheezed, my inhaler. Panic set in as Maxwell realized he'd forgotten Ethan's inhaler. Olivia, however, sprang into action. Lily, get my bag, she instructed calmly. From it, she produced an inhaler. Here, Ethan, this is Lily's, but it'll work for you too. As Ethan's breathing stabilized, Maxwell looked at Olivia in shock. Lily has asthma too? Olivia nodded. And a heart murmur, just like you had as a child. The revelation hit Maxwell hard. He'd passed on his health issues to both his children, yet he'd only been there for one of them. Later, as they sat on a bench watching the children play more amicably, Olivia turned to Maxwell. Why did you really leave that night? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Maxwell took a deep breath. I was scared, Olivia. Scared of failing as a father. Scared of not living up to my own father's expectations. But that's no excuse. I should have been there for you. For Lily? Olivia was quiet for a moment. Then, to Maxwell's surprise, she took his hand. I never stopped loving you, you know, even after everything. Maxwell's heart raced. Olivia, I dash. She cut him off. That doesn't mean I've forgiven you, or that I trust you. But maybe we can try to be a family. For the kids. As they watched Lily and Ethan laughing together on the merry-go-round, Maxwell felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe it wasn't too late to fix what he'd broken. Their moment was interrupted by Olivia's phone ringing. She answered, her expression growing serious as she listened. I understand. Yes, I'll think about it. Thank you, she said before hanging up. Everything okay? Maxwell asked. Olivia hesitated. That was the school in San Francisco. They're offering me a position as headmaster. It's a huge opportunity, but it would mean moving away, Maxwell finished. Olivia nodded. I don't know what to do. Lily and I were ready for a fresh start, but now, Maxwell felt his newfound hope slipping away. Just as they were beginning to reconnect, Olivia and Lily might leave again. When do you have to decide? He asked. They need an answer by the end of the week, Olivia replied. As they called the children over, ready to end their first family outing, Maxwell's mind raced. He had less than a week to prove to Olivia that staying was worth it, that he could be the father and partner they deserved. Watching Lily and Ethan walk ahead, chatting animatedly, Maxwell made a silent vow. He wouldn't lose his family again. Whatever it took, he would make this work. But as Olivia's words about the job offer echoed in his mind, Maxwell realized that the hardest part of his journey was still to come. The bridges he was trying to build might be washed away before they were even completed. The day of the school inauguration arrived, bringing with it a mix of excitement and tension. Olivia stood in front of the newly renovated building, her dream finally becoming a reality. Maxwell, Ethan, and Lily were there to support her. Just as the ceremony was about to begin, Olivia's assistant rushed over, panic etched on her face. Ms. Thompson, we have a problem. The main donor just pulled out. We're short $500,000 for the first year's operating costs. Olivia felt the ground shift beneath her feet. What? How is this possible? Maxwell overheard the conversation. Without hesitation, he stepped forward. I can help. Let me make some calls. Olivia hesitated, her pride warring with desperation. Finally, she nodded. Okay, but hurry. The mayor will be here any minute. Maxwell stepped aside, phone in hand. He called old business contacts, cashing in favors and making promises. Within 30 minutes, he had secured not just the $500,000, but an additional $250,000 for a scholarship fund. As he rejoined the group, Olivia looked at him with a mix of gratitude and surprise. "Thank you, Maxwell. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "This is your moment. You've earned it." The ceremony began, with Olivia cutting the ribbon to thunderous applause. As she stepped up to the podium to give her speech, she noticed Maxwell in the crowd, giving her an encouraging nod. "This school," Olivia began, "is more than just a building. It's a second chance for many children who might otherwise be left behind. And second chances are something I've come to value greatly." Her eyes met Maxwell's, and in that moment, something shifted between them. After Olivia's speech, Maxwell surprised everyone by asking to say a few words. Standing at the podium, he took a deep breath. "Many of you know me as a businessman, but today I stand before you as a man asking for forgiveness. 5 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life when I abandoned my family." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Olivia and the children watched, wide-eyed. "I've spent the last few months trying to make amends, not just to my family, but to my community. Today, I'm announcing the creation of the Second Chance Foundation, dedicated to supporting single parents and their children, inspired by the incredible strength and resilience of Olivia Thompson." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes as Maxwell continued. "To Olivia, Lily, and Ethan, I know I can never fully make up for the years I've lost, but I promise to spend every day trying. I love you all, and I'm so proud of the family we're becoming." As Maxwell stepped down, Lily and Ethan ran to hug him. Olivia approached slowly, her expression unreadable. "Maxwell," she said softly, "that was unexpected." He nodded, uncertainty in his eyes. "Olivia, I know I have no right to ask, but I hope you'll give us a chance." Olivia was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "I already have. I turned down the job in San Francisco. I want to stay here, to see where this new chapter takes us." Maxwell's face lit up with joy and relief. "Really? You're staying?" Olivia nodded. "We're staying. As a family." The rest of the day passed in a blur of congratulations and well wishes. As evening fell, the family found themselves alone in the school courtyard. Lily tugged on Olivia's sleeve. "Mom, does this mean we're all going to live together now?" Olivia exchanged glances with Maxwell. "Well, honey, we're going to take things slow, but we'll be spending a lot more time together as a family." Ethan piped up, "Can we have family game nights? And go on vacations together?" Maxwell laughed, ruffling Ethan's hair. "Absolutely, buddy. We have a lot of lost time to make up for." As they walked to the car, Olivia fell into step beside Maxwell. "You know," she said, "a year ago, I never would have believed this was possible." Maxwell nodded. "Me neither. But I'm grateful for this second chance. I won't waste it, Olivia. I promise." Olivia smiled, taking his hand. "I know. We've all got a lot of healing to do, but I think we're on the right path." As they drove home, the car filled with the chatter and laughter of their children, Maxwell and Olivia shared a look of quiet understanding. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were ready to face it together. 1 year later, the Hawthorne-Thompson family gathered in the same park where they had their first difficult meeting. This time, however, the atmosphere was one of joy and celebration. "Happy anniversary!" Lily and Ethan shouted, presenting their parents with a homemade card. Maxwell and Olivia looked at each other, marveling at how far they'd come. The journey wasn't over, but they had built a strong foundation for their future together. As they cut into the cake Ethan and Lily had helped bake, Maxwell raised his glass. "To second chances," he toasted. "To family," Olivia added, clinking her glass against his. The park echoed with laughter and love, a testament to the healing power of forgiveness and the strength of a family reunited. The sun shone brightly over the park as the Hawthorne-Thompson family spread out their picnic blanket. Maxwell, Olivia, Lily, and Ethan settled in, their laughter filling the air. It was hard to believe how much had changed in just 1 year. "Dad, catch!" Ethan called out, tossing a frisbee to Maxwell. As they played, Olivia and Lily unpacked the food. "Remember our first picnic here?" Olivia asked, smiling at the memory. Maxwell nodded, catching the frisbee. "How could I forget?" Ethan and Lily could barely look at each other. Now, the children were thick as thieves, giggling over some shared joke as they helped set up the picnic. As they ate, the conversation flowed easily, punctuated by moments of reflection on the past year. "Remember when Ethan had his asthma attack during the school play?" Lily said. "I was so scared, but Mom knew exactly what to do." Ethan grinned. "Yeah, and then Dad drove us to the hospital at lightning speed. I thought we were gonna fly." Maxwell chuckled. "Well, I wasn't about to let anything happen to my boy. Or my girl," he added, ruffling Lily's hair. Olivia watched the interaction with a warm smile. She thought back to the day Lily had her first father-daughter dance at school. Maxwell had been so nervous, but he'd shown up in a suit with a corsage for Lily. The look of pride and love on both their faces had brought tears to Olivia's eyes. As the children ran off to play, Maxwell and Olivia found themselves alone. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Maxwell said, his voice soft. Olivia nodded. "We have. It hasn't always been easy, but I think we're in a good place now." Maxwell took a deep breath. "Olivia, I've been thinking about us, our future. I know we've been taking things slow, and I respect that. But I want you to know, I'm all in. Whatever that means for us." Olivia was quiet for a moment. "Maxwell, I love you. I always have. But I think we both know that we work better as friends and co-parents than as a couple." To her surprise, Maxwell smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that. I love you too, Olivia. And I love the family we've built. I don't want to risk that by trying to force a romantic relationship." They shared a look of understanding and relief. Their bond was stronger now than it had ever been, built on mutual respect and shared love for their children. As if on cue, Lily and Ethan came running back, excitement clear on their faces. "Mom, Dad, we have an idea," Lily exclaimed. "We want to start a club at school," Ethan continued, "for kids with divorced parents or complicated families, to show them it's okay to be different." Maxwell and Olivia exchanged proud glances. "That's a wonderful idea," Olivia said. "We can help you set it up," Maxwell added. "Maybe even get the Second Chance Foundation involved." The children beamed, already planning their first meeting. As the afternoon wore on, a familiar figure approached their picnic spot. It was Sophia, looking nervous but determined. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said hesitantly. Maxwell stood, surprise evident on his face. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" Sophia took a deep breath. "I've been in therapy, dealing with, well, everything. And I wanted to apologize. To all of you. Especially you, Ethan. I'm so sorry for trying to turn you against your father." Ethan looked at his mother, then at Maxwell and Olivia. Seeing their encouraging nods, he stepped forward and hugged Sophia. "It's okay, Mom. I forgive you." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes as she hugged her son back. Olivia, seeing Sophia's genuine remorse, made a decision. "Why don't you join us? We're celebrating Lily and Ethan's birthdays next week. You should be there." Sophia looked shocked, then grateful. "I'd like that. Thank you." As the sun began to set, the expanded family gathered for a group photo. Maxwell and Olivia stood in the center, Lily and Ethan in front of them. Sophia stood to the side, Ethan's hand in hers. "Say family," the photographer called out. As their voices rang out in unison, Maxwell looked around at the faces of his loved ones. He saw the joy in Lily's eyes, the contentment in Ethan's smile, the peace in Olivia's expression, and even the hope in Sophia's gaze. This wasn't the family he had imagined all those years ago, but it was real. It was messy and complicated and beautiful. and he wouldn't have it any other way. As they packed up to leave, Maxwell felt a sense of completeness he'd never experienced before. The journey had been long and painful, but it had led them here, to this moment of unity and unconditional love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but they would face them together, as a family.
Thank you for watching this heartfelt story of redemption, love, and second chances here on the True Crime Studio. Maxwell and Olivia's journey reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there's always a path to healing and reconciliation. Their story shows the power of forgiveness, the strength of family, and the courage it takes to rebuild what was once lost. If this story moved you, please give it a thumbs up, share your thoughts or your own stories of second chances in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the True Crime Studio for more incredible and inspiring tales. Together, let's celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. See you in the next video.